truly care about. And so it really comes down to how convinced are they that this, the plan that you just presented to them from a physical therapy perspective is how certain are they that this is going to be able to get them to where they want to be, right? And not just where they want to be, but that deeper emotional pain point motivating factor that you helped them unveil, right? And so that's really what it comes down to. And the funny thing is, you may be the best objection handler in the world when it comes to like the financial objection or the spousal objection or whatever. But if it's truly a smokescreen for certainty, by addressing that other objection, you are creating friction and sales pressure. And so that's where we tend to see a lot of people really fail, is they're not actually identifying the correct objection and they're addressing the wrong one, when 90% of the time it's going to be a certainty-based objection that's hidden by some other objection. It's a smokescreen.
That's so wise. Because everyone, because they have their own financial biases, they are projecting that onto other people, and they always assume that the reason people aren't interested is because of the upfront investment. But you're saying that really they're just not sure or don't clearly understand what makes what you're going to do different than what they could potentially use or get for free or just for a copay somewhere else. And so how do we get to the bottom? Like, how do we uncover the real objection that people have?
Yeah, I think Ben speaks pretty assuredly from coming up to begin with. So I think we need to it goes without saying that is the best path, providing a ton of value, a world-class experience, and getting them just excited to say yes rather than hesitating, right? And so that's number one, but just getting them to kind of trying to figure out which objection they actually truly have. Yeah. You really have to try and do what I've kind of coined this phrase, certainty anchoring, where you want to anchor them in a place where they feel absolutely certain that this is what they want to do, or at least unveil how certain or uncertain they are. And this scale and this approach is something that I got from Cole Gordon, but basically before you pitch them anything, it's good to basically just break down what you just did with them. Like, hey, we're going to help you in so many more ways than just like X, Y, and Z, but these are the main 3 ways that we're going to get you from, present the gap from where you are now to where you want to be, deeper emotional pain point wise. And so 1, 2, 3, it's a quick recap. Hey, how do you feel about that process overall? Now, this is where the skill of detecting tonality is really important. You need to be able to hey, if they say, oh, that sounds pretty good. To me, that wasn't super certain, right? So to me, that's like the same as saying I don't know, So you got to be able to detect that, but then we can take it another level and be like, hey, I just want you to be completely honest, right? I wanted you to feel good about the process overall. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is like, you never want to come here again, but a 10 is you feel like this is a slam dunk. Can you give me a number on where you're at? Yeah. Right. And then you're going to have a really good idea of where they are, and you can kind of address it there. And we can see if certainty is part of this. If certainty is something that they even have before you even present an investment, or cost or price or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's the best way to unveil kind of if certainty is an issue or not.
Right. And so the key, it sounds like, is, of course, like, in order to prevent objections at the point of sale, we have to go through a series of questions and micro conversations to make sure that they are sure in the process what it is that they're trying to achieve. And sounds like what you were just saying is like believing that the process that you just laid out is actually like going to be helpful for them. So can you talk a little bit more about like what are the moments or the questions or the things that you're trying to figure out before you get to that pitch? So you mentioned already, like we just went through that, like how does that feel? And then kind of like piercing them on that, like, just okay. Like, can you talk a little bit more about like what sorts of things we're looking for before we get to the pitch?
Yeah, I think ultimately, sometimes a lot of patients will even dodge giving you a number. And there's this one little thing I like to say where I just call it like putting myself in their corner. And I'll even sometimes say like, hey, like I want to be in your corner. Like every time you come here, we want to make sure that you're making progress. We're going to take things to the next level, answer any questions you have, make sure you always feel good about the process. That's really important to us here. And so I just, any sort of honesty in terms of where we're at and where, like in terms of what you're expecting and what you're hoping that we can help you achieve is really important here. So can you please, give me a number and where you're at? You're not going to hurt my feelings. Right. And then they might say, let's say they say like they're a 6 or a 7. I thank them for being honest. And I say, hey, like, once again, if you could be honest, this can be super helpful for both of us. But like, what is it exactly that's missing that might get you to like that 8 or a 9? And maybe it's something simple, or maybe it's not, but at least it gives you a really good pulse. And guess what? If you pitch them and they don't close, you have massive amounts of closure now. And we know that sales, there's tons of rejection, and the dealing with that can be very difficult. And so at least at this point, using this method, you actually have some closure in your sale, right? Where you're like, okay, I wasn't able to get them, but I know why now. So that's just the type of conversation, but that's how I position myself. Those are the types of questions I may ask them leading into that. And then even if they are like a 9 or a 10, you can sometimes take it one step further and say, awesome, thanks for being honest, and like kind of call them out on it, like hold them accountable to that 9 or a 10 and say, hey, like, can you tell me like 1 or 2 reasons why you're a 9 or a 10? Yeah. Why do you feel so good about this? Right. And then pitch, you know what I mean? Because there will be times where they say they're a 9 or a 10 and then they don't move forward. So
yeah. That's one of my favorite ones. When you kind of lay out the plan, then you ask them, is like, does this sound like the plan that's going to get you to this ideal outcome that you're looking for? Everyone says yes. And it's like, oh, good. Well, like, can you explain why? Like, why does it sound like this is going to be different than what you tried in the past and it's going to get you to where you're trying to go? And then they have to explain to you why your plan is going to work and why they should move forward with it. And then cherry on top, ask him like on a scale of 1 to 10, like how comfortable do you feel like with this plan? Just so we're on the same page. Absolutely love that.
There's another.
Yeah, I think
there's another.
Go for it.
Another thing too that I like about AJ's with regards to the closure and being able to understand why somebody said no, because that's a great learning opportunity to make sure that, hey, future calls, this is what I need to do better at as well, and be on the lookout for too. So it's a huge learning opportunity as well from that closure standpoint.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know why people are maybe not wanting to move forward, but you also, when somebody says yes, or somebody's a 9 or a 10, like going back to that real quick, it's super important sometimes to have them sell themselves and explain why, right? So this is a quote from Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator guy, but he says, so let's get away from trying to get yeses from people. It's a useless word. Yes is nothing without how anyway, because there's only 3 kinds of yeses: commitment, confirmation, and counterfeit. And because people are so used to the yes momentum nonsense that's been thrown around and used on us so much, people get really good at giving counterfeit yeses. I'm sure you've all heard it before, only to have people back out for some reason after that. So
yeah,
have them sell themselves.
Ask them why. Call them out. Call them out in their people-pleasing nature. No, I love that. What's that? That's from Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
He's an incredible book for everyone about negotiating. He's like an FBI negotiator or something like that. Absolutely incredible book. Okay, and so right now the frame around this conversation has really been about kind of the transition from completing the evaluation and kind of going into the recommended plan of care. You just talked about like what you recommend that they do, and before you go into the cost and the investment, we're making sure and verifying that they're certain that this plan of attack is going to get them to where they want to go. Is that correct in the placement?
100%.
Okay, perfect. So once you have that certainty, once they have explained to you why they think that is going to work for them, how do you transition into the costs, and what are some of the objections that you might find at that stage?
Yeah, I think the transition there is going to be super based around a lot of what we teach in the program and what Ben really stands behind with I know we have our evaluation sales scorecard. So that at that point, it's really confidently reassuring that you can help, not just saying it, but explaining why you feel that way, maybe with a patient story that sounds like the person in front of you, assuring them that it's something that you, you see, day in and day out, being able to confidently present a plan and put that in front of them. But then when you're actually pitching, like, just keeping it simple is, I think, the hardest thing for people for some reason. Sometimes people will send me some recorded conversations. If they're in a single party recording state, they can record and send, and we can kind of coach them. But that, a lot of the time, these recordings are super long, and I'm like, man, the pitch should really be like 60 seconds maybe. So I think that's a big kind of mistake that people do, is they sometimes talk themselves out of a sale. We just gotta make sure that they feel good about the process, and then help them make the best decision for themselves.
Right. So how do we keep that in context where it's like, how do we keep it simple?
Obviously, the pitch is going to be from person, and for the person in front, it look like. A lot of people are selling packages, and they try to present the package as a package. Think of it more and using different lingo. People are used to being sold, packages, or they're kind of packages. And the other thing is, like, we need these people. We need a certain frequency of visits over a certain time period. And so actually transitioning away from saying, I recommend this number of visits, and instead saying, I need to work with you for X number of time. The people who get the best results come about once per week. Oh, we happen to have a plan where you can save a massive amount of money doing exactly that, so that we can get you from where you are to where you want to be. Are you opposed to that plan? Once again, staying away from getting yeses, turning your yes questions into no questions. Are you with that?
Ooh. I'm going to repeat that because your connection's a little shaky right now. But as you go into the pitch, instead of saying, hey, I recommend 6 visits, it's, hey, I need to see you X number of times to help you achieve this result. Now, the people who get the absolute best results, who come in with a similar thing, they're coming in for this number of visits. Now, would moving forward with that be a crazy idea? Like, in asking the negative versus, like, do you want to move forward with that? It's more of like, are you opposed to moving forward with that, if that's what's going to get you the absolute best result? That's some wizardry right there. That's really, really good.
And just to be clear, we're not trying to trick people. We're trying to get them to, they have this reflexive, automatic, without thinking, they like to say no when you want a yes. Okay. And so all it's doing is getting them to, it's a pattern interrupt, where you're getting them to say, I have a couple more seconds to think about this because of the way it was asked. That's really what it is.
Right. Because a lot of people, as you said, like, they're not saying no. They're stuck in a pattern. And if they are seeing the exact same kind of patterns and feeling the same way as other people that didn't get them the same result, and if you ask the same questions and you have the same kind of sales process as someone who has already let them down, they're going to assume that you're the same. And so the more things you can make them feel different emotions at stages that are, for the most part, very like standardized and formalized in healthcare, it's going to force them to assume that this is actually different and I can expect different results. I think that's brilliant. Ben, you have something to add?
No, I think it's great, and it's something that not very many people are doing. I think it's great.
I love it. Now, quick, fun question. How do you guys feel about pricing sheets?
I think they have their place. Okay, so a pricing sheet is an easy way to help somebody downsell themselves. But if it's a situation where you can maybe potentially use it to have somebody upsell themselves, is when I so I mean, maybe somebody is kind of like a hard hard sell on a 10-pack, but maybe you're going to present the 6-pack, but with like a, hey, if you really wanted to hit this hard, or I know you want to get the pain to go away, you want to feel better, but if you want to get to the place where you feel strong, confident, and resilient enough to where you don't have to worry about this ever again, I'd recommend the 10, but I'll leave it up to you, right? And then you can show them physically, right? If there's a chance of upsell, then use it. If there's a way, most of the time there is, where they can downsell themselves instead of upselling, then it's going to hurt you probably more than help.
Yeah. My thinking on it is like, I don't know, do you go to a dentist and you've got a cavity and they pull out a pricing sheet, you know, hey, this is what it's going to cost to do half the cavity, quarter of the cavity, or the full thing. Like, this doesn't happen, right? So why are we doing the same thing with physical therapy? Like, do you want to take care of the quarter of this issue? Okay, if so, this is the package for you. If you want to take care of half this issue, here's the other package for you. Or do you want to take care of the whole damn thing? Here's the package for you. Like, you lose credibility in my mind when you give people those options. But I do think, like, in a downsell situation, that can be an option. It's like you recommend what you're doing, like, hey, these are some other package options. Be completely transparent with you, Ms. Smith. These most likely are not going to get you where you want to be. However, what we can do is start here. And as you see us making progress, then we can start moving into more of the higher package if you feel like it, if you're on the right track. So like AJ said, it can be used as a downsell, but it's not the first course of action that I would do during my session.
Completely agree. It's good if you feel uncomfortable with sales because you feel like you have a divider between you and the other person, and it's not you asking for money, it's the sheet. But at the end of the day, it's like people are going to choose the lesser of the two options. Just like instead of getting a large, you're going to get a medium drink at McDonald's. Like, there's an incredible amount of data around that, using price anchors to get people to buy the middle thing.
Do you want to supersize that?
Yeah, right. You want to supersize that? Exactly. But I think it's so much better to be coming from a true consultative position of like, listen, this is what people get the most results or the best results for. This is what I recommend. And then if there's pushback, then you can have a conversation which is like, great, why don't we just start with this and then we can take it from there. And you downsell them into it. But now it's not, you just trying to sell something on a speed. This is truly a recommendation based off of your expert opinion. That's what I don't like about sheets. It's no longer about professional opinions and more about like, here's my service offerings. But I think there's a place for them as well for people who are just getting comfortable with cash and collecting cash from folks. Let's wrap this up with one important question that everyone is wondering. When you get a prospect off the street or just calls in and they're asking, like, do you take my insurance? How do you handle it?
Go ahead, AJ.
Best answer.
Well, I mean, you got to start. I'm guessing it's not like, how do we deflect that? Because everybody should have memorized so well, it just flicks straight off the tongue. Mm-hmm. Hey, we can absolutely get insurance involved, but first, I want to make sure we can even help you. So, what's going on? Then let's just assume this is the question you're really asking. Let's assume they're like, no, I just got to know if you take my insurance. Right. And let's say, right, I don't think you should deflect any further. You end up being rude at that point and very salesy, and you're going to lose trust. Yeah. So usually I go into, how we're different and how we work. And then they're like, oh, I got to just use my insurance. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I'll say, this is what we've been trying with some decent results so far, is we've been doing this new thing where we say, it sounds like using your insurance is really important to you for this. I'm sure that's not the only thing that's really important for you. So what are two other things that are the most important for you when choosing physical therapy to help you reach XYZ goal? Oh, well, I want somebody who listens. I want somebody who can spend more time with me and is specialized in like seeing runners. And I'll be like, look, I think we're the best people to check those other two boxes. The way we work, like I just explained, we're going to be able to spend double, maybe triple the amount of one-on-one time with you than the competition or with another clinic. And then in terms of listening to you, that allows us to have more time to listen to you more than any other place will be. And the way we work, it allows us to specialize in active adults and runners more than anyone else as well. So I know we check those two boxes best for you, but that third box, we can always get out of network insurance claims involved. So with all that being said, do you think you're opposed to would you be opposed to just giving us a shot or something like that? more or less.
So good. Yeah. I love how like you get on common ground. Hey, it sounds like using your insurance is something that's so important to you. I completely understand that. But just out of curiosity, like what are 2 other things that are most important to you when choosing a physical therapist? That is so good. I've actually never heard anyone using that. That's
Just to
brilliant.
keep it, as low pressure as possible, you could say, hey, even if just so I can send you to the best place besides here, like what are 2 other most important things for you, and adding that piece in there.
Excellent. And what happens if that entices them? They want to talk, and you get to the end. How do you talk about your rates and tee up the evaluation? And then that's the final question. It's all we got time for today.
So you're saying if they do want to move forward,
Yeah, basically, you've overcome the straight up rejection of like, hey, we don't take your insurance, but sounds good. We don't take your insurance, but we offer you these other things. Is this still worth a conversation? You continue the call. You figure out what they're trying to do, what they've tried, where they're trying to go. And now you're like, great, I think you're a perfect fit for what we do for X, Y, and Z reasons. And then you kind of tee up like what your process is. A lot of people are afraid to talk about their pricing and how their services kind of work on that phone call out of fear of rejection. How do you handle it?
Yeah, I think just so I fully answer the question, I think I'll hit everything that I'm thinking here. But basically, going back to if I can't deflect any further, right? I will. A lot of times, people are like, they jump straight to. We're actually an out of network, and sometimes they'll explain really quickly why, but then the prospect is typically like, oh, they like interrupt you almost to be like, oh, so what does it cost? Right. And so I think people then just give them the price, and then the person's like, well, I'm going to like think about it, or I'll call you back. And they never do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake. And so I would always encourage people to almost, it's a very premature pitch, but it's the best thing you've got. But I do think that you should start with explaining how different and unique, and then go into that you're out of network and what it costs. That is number one. But then let's say we go through our little objection, handling quip that I just taught you guys. And then they say, oh yeah, well, yeah, I think I'd be okay to, with moving forward. Then what I'm going to do is, because they essentially forced me to skip the discovery phase of the call, I'm going to not just invite them in for an eval. Oh, I won them over. I told them the price. They're good with it. No, we still have to go back. And we still have to figure out what is that deeper. So John, it sounds like we're on board. We need to move forward. Like I said, it's really important here. We don't invite you in unless we absolutely know we can help. So now that we know that you there's full transparency on how we work, you're interested in moving forward with an evaluation, I need a little bit more information about what's going on and how it's affecting your life. And you'd have to go back there. And then once you get deep enough, then okay, cool. Yeah, I am confident we can help because of XYZ reason, and let's invite you in. Right. That's how I would go about that.
I love that. And it goes to show, it's like, it makes people trust you more, because it shows that you're not just like most practices who are just stomping people into their schedule. It's like, all right, great. Now that we're in alignment on this, let's just make sure that you're a good fit for how we do things. How long are those calls usually?
I mean, like a standard discovery call?
Yeah, standard discovery.
I would say shorter than 15 minutes is too fast, probably, and then longer than 20 is probably is too long. Mm-hmm. There are some cases that are a little bit different, but yeah.
Excellent, AJ. Well, everyone, make sure to give AJ some love for taking the time to be here. He has an incredibly busy schedule, but he took time out of it to be here today to share some of his sales wisdom with you. And if you guys want to have him back on here to share more of his wisdom around certainty anchoring, preventing objections, overcoming objections, give us a shout out in the comments, because we would absolutely love to have him back in here. And also give him a congratulations. He just hit his first ever $100,000 month inside of his cash practice. That is an incredible achievement. And AJ, having been there since the very beginning of starting the practice, man, I'm beyond excited for you, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think when I met you, I was stuck at 8 to 10K and dropped below that because of COVID and everything. And it's cool to see just where I am now. And yeah, the team I have now and everything. So I'm super grateful.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for being here, sharing your wisdom. Everyone who's listening, if you got value out of this episode, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you want more in the weeds sales coaching on how to enrich your patients' lives, how to communicate your value, and help make your package recommendations an absolute no-brainer without having to convince people of your value, put sales in the comments, and we will continue to produce more and more sales content for you all. So